March 2020. That's a date that I probably won't forget in a long time. It's when the storm of coronavirus came and hit most of our lives and devastated us completely. Life as we knew it no longer existed. We were stuck into lockdown for months on end. Nobody had any idea when that was going to end. And then I also fell very severely ill, coronavirus, on March the 18th. I just got home from work course and I had picked the kids up and I was trying to sort out dinner and trying to sort out the kids. Suddenly I was just knocked for six. I had just high temperature, dizziness, headaches, just feeling terribly awful. I just could not literally stand or do anything. I had to ask my husband to come home to look after the kids because I could not cope with them. Then, for a few days, like I think it was from Wednesday until Sunday, I wasn't getting better. I was just severely ill, and at that point my husband was great. He was looking after the kids, he was taking care of the home. He was the ideal husband that you would expect would pick up the bill when their partner is out of action and can no longer do anything. Unfortunately for me, and what I'd noticed over the 9 years that I'd been married to him, every time when I was ill, he would be okay for a couple of days, and then suddenly he would completely lose the plot, completely go crazy, completely abusive, and he can't cope with it anymore, and he doesn't want to have to do this anymore. This is not what he signed up for. Taking care of his kids, his wife, his home isn't his responsibility, it's my responsibility, so why should he have to do it? Unfortunately for me, almost as soon as I married him, he was like this. I would be ill every year. I was ill, which is very unfortunate. It's not my fault, it's not his fault, it's not anybody's fault, but every year I was married to him, I was ill severely. I'd be in hospital, I'd have an infection, I'd be in quarantine, I was out of action. I was fully dependent on him and reliant on him to be the man and to be the husband, to be the father that I needed to pick the bill and to sort the kids out and to look after me and look after the home. I also had lost two children in between, so I've got 24-year-old, 17-year-old, 8 and 3. So between the 8 and the 3-year-old, I actually lost two other children through ectopic pregnancies, which were unfortunate and which were very difficult, but there's nothing we could have done about that. But even when I'd lost babies, even when I was pregnant and ill, even when I had an operation, a procedure, I was in quarantine, I was in A&E being treated for some kind of major issue that I've had, my husband would still be abusive, and I never understood why. And right from the beginning, I would message his family, his brothers, his sisters, his friends, anybody I could, to try to plead with them for help. I don't understand, why was he being so abusive to me? I love this man and he claimed to love me, so why was he so abusive? Why was he shouting and swearing and hitting and threatening me and just making me feel so worthless and useless and unlovable? I don't understand, what more can I do to this person to make them believe that I love them so much, and why can they not love me back the way I love them? It took me a long time to realize that he is a narcissist. He's a covert narcissist. So he will pretend to everybody's face that he's amazing, he's loving, he's caring. He's great with the kids, he's great as a husband, he's great as a friend, as a son, as a stepfather, as a taxi driver, which is what his occupation is. Unfortunately, he's a narcissist, a full-blown narcissist in every possible way. When I started learning about narcissism and educating myself about it and the different traits of a narcissist, it almost word for word was explaining my husband. It would be 10 out of 10 points applied to him. I'd never realised up until March 2020 that he was a narcissist. I think even at that point I still did not realise that he was a narcissist. It still took me weeks before I actually understood that this person that I loved so much, that I had planned a future together with, that I'd thought about all the things we'd do. He'd spoken to me about it, I'd spoken to him about it, that we were going to retire, we were going to go on holiday, we were going to enjoy our life together. It seemed like we were best friends. We'd text during the day, we could just seem to click so well, and we could chat about anything. We'd have a laugh, we'd have a joke, we'd talk about religion, we'd talk about politics, we'd talk about family life, we'd talk about the children, and every single topic we seemed to be able to talk about and discuss and enjoy talking, spending time together and talking. unfortunately for me, this was just a facade for him. You know, he had put a mask on to pretend to be this person that I fell in love with, that pretended to be the person that I wanted him to be, when in actual fact, he was nothing like that. It took me a long time to actually unpick his behavior and unpick his mentality, and to realize that he is so manipulative and so insecure, you know, and jealous and obsessive and possessive in every possible way, that he would on a daily basis, he would demean me and humiliate me and hurt me and put me down. But he would disguise it in a way that he's doing it for my good, he's doing it for my benefit. If he says anything to me, it's for my benefit, that he's telling me something that, you know, this needs changing, that needs changing, this isn't right, that isn't right. And it was almost like every single thing about me he completely disliked, to the point where I would think that you are supposedly to fall in love with me, you're supposed to have loved me when you married me. How could you have loved me if everything about me is so wrong to you, you know? My hair, my hairstyle, my makeup, my clothes sense, every choice I had, everything that, you know, things I wanted to watch, things I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, he completely disagreed with everything. And yeah, at the beginning of our relationship, it's almost like we're perfect for each other. We're made for each other. Every single thing that I would tell him, yes, he likes that too. Yes, he agrees with that too. Yes, they're his favourite things too. Yes, that's what he likes to watch. That's what he likes to read. That's the places he likes to go. That's the kind of people he likes. And one by one, everything became clear that just how much he'd lied to me and manipulated me and deceived me into believing that he was this person that he wasn't. You know, for me, it was like a fairy tale. My Prince Charming had finally come into my life to rescue me from all the pain and all the struggles and all the trauma that I'd been suffering up until that point. And it just seemed too good to be true. Unfortunately, when things seem too good to be true, often they are too good to be true. We just don't want to see it that way. So when he came into my life, that's how I felt. You know, I felt that yes, he needed a visa because he was on a student visa in Birmingham and he was studying in Birmingham, and he needed a spouse visa to be able to stay in the UK. That was fine. I understood that. I accepted that. But I thought, in addition to that he actually loved me, that he actually had fallen in love with me, that he loved my caring nature, my kind nature. You know, I was often told that I was very good looking, I was very attractive as a person, and I assumed that he liked that about me. It actually took him 5 years to actually admit that he thought I was attractive in any possible way. You know, up until that point, it was always, I married you because you're a kind, caring person, you're a lovely person, you look after me, that's why I married you. So it took me 5 years before I actually heard from his mouth that I was beautiful, or I was attractive, or that I was remotely good looking, and that he actually considered me remotely good looking. He had always demeaned me and humiliated me and made me feel that he was so good looking that I should be grateful that he married me. I should be grateful that he's in my life. I should be grateful that he even considered, you know, me as a partner, because he had the pick of, you know, of the best. He could have married anybody, but he chose me. Unfortunately, little by little, I realized that it was actually the other way around. Everything he was saying about me was completely true about him. Every negative comment he made, every criticism he made, you know, he made me feel insecure, he made me feel jealous, he made me feel possessive, he made me feel obsessive, he made me feel unstable and crazy and irresponsible and unreliable. But everything that he made me feel and he told me was actually true about him. In March 2020, when I fell ill with coronavirus, he humiliated me. He hurt me in every possible way. He was abusive in every possible way, physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally, financially, sexually. Every possible way you could have hurt somebody, he hurt me when I was in the middle of being ill with coronavirus. There was one incident, 12 o'clock at midnight, when it was Ramadan, so we were fasting, so we were exhausted physically as it was, but the whole of Ramadan, he had been off with me over one thing or another. I can't even remember what the reasons were that he was off with me, or he was upset with me, or he wasn't talking to me, he was giving the silent treatment. And 12 o'clock at night, there seemed to be no reason for him just to suddenly completely blow up at me. But he did. He completely lost the plot and just started screaming at the top of his voice, "You're ugly, you're old, you're disgusting. I can't bear to look at you. I can't bear to be anywhere near you. I can't bear to share a room with you, let alone a bed or go near you. You're just disgusting. You make me sick. I hate to look at you. I hate to be anywhere near you." you should be grateful that I married you. I mean, look at me and look at you. You know, why would somebody like me want to marry you? You should be so grateful that I married you. If I hadn't married you, you'd be crawling the street for punters. It just went on and on, and I was still ill with coronavirus, so I was still in a state of shock and confusion and not understanding why this man that I have loved for 9 years and given everything to, how he could say these things about me. Why would he even think those things about me? You know, he's meant to love me. He's meant to care about me, and I'm ill with coronavirus, and he's being so vile and awful to me. It was some very difficult weeks for me. I ended up taking an overdose and going to hospital because I just could not cope. I just did not understand how I could make him understand how awful I felt. Not only was I physically ill, but his behavior, his attitude, his treatment of me was just so vile and inhumane that I just could not cope with it. I was struggling to look after my kids. You know, I was unable to look after anybody. I could barely look after myself. You know, there'd be times where I'd be just laying on the sofa and not be able to actually physically get up to go to the bathroom or to get myself something to eat. There was one evening where he went and got himself something to eat, and I was thinking, are you not even going to offer? You're not going to even ask me, do I need something to eat? Because I'm starving, but I just can't get up. And I was texting his brother at the time on Messenger. I was chatting to him, and I said, your brother's just gone to get himself something to eat, but he's not asked me, and I'm starving, but I can't physically get up because I'm really ill with coronavirus. And so much like nobody believed that I had coronavirus. Even my own sisters, my own mother, you know, nobody seemed to believe that I had coronavirus. And at that point, you know, they weren't doing tests, so it's difficult to confirm it, but I was just so ill. And even if it wasn't coronavirus, I was just awful. I was just so ill, and I could not do anything. And then, yeah, in between, there'd be times where I was lucid, where I was able to get up, where I was able to do something. You know, if I spoke to a friend, I was distracted immediately and then almost forgot that I was ill. Like, you know, it didn't matter. I'd just completely ignore my illness and my pain or whatever and just get distracted and start chatting to somebody. And that was the only thing that kept me going, was Facebook and WhatsApp and chatting to friends and reconnecting with people that I'd lost contact with and stuff. And that was the only way that I could spend my time, because I just could not do anything. I couldn't get up. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read a book. I couldn't interact with the kids. I couldn't interact with my husband. There was nothing I could do. And he hated it. He was so jealous of me talking to my friends. And it was the first time in 9 years that I've actually spoken to somebody on the phone, that I've actually phoned somebody and spoken to them. And I did a couple of video calls with a couple of my friends, and that was the first time in our relationship that I've done that. Because I've just not been able to do it up until that point. You know, he was so insecure and so possessive and so obsessive. He didn't want me to have friends. He didn't want me to speak to anyone. You know, if we went out and somebody who knew me from before, like from when I used to work in the pharmacy or when I used to work in one of the surgeries I used to work in, a lot of people locally know me from my jobs. So people would randomly say hello to me or speak to me. And he'd hate it, absolutely flip. Who's that? Why are they saying hello to you? Why are they looking at you? Why are they smiling at you? And I said, well, it's just a patient or a customer that knows me from before. You know, half the time I can't even remember who these people are. I just say hello or smile back. But a lot of the time it takes me a while to actually remember who this person is that's smiling at me or saying hello. And even before we got married, I actually told him, look, I've always worked with the public. You know, if we're out and about, there are people always saying hello to me. You know, even if I don't know who they are, they remember me from where I used to work. So, you know, it's not anything to be concerned about. It's just there's nothing I can do about it. That's how it is when you work with the public. And yeah, his colleagues were the girls. I would hear them on the phone, love you, kiss, kiss. He was working Domino's Pizzas at one point, and he would bring home pizza boxes with a pizza for himself, and on top of the box there'd be kisses on the box, and he'd say that, you know, the girls are quite hands-on and they go around giving everybody hugs and things and showing affection openly. But that was okay, you know. He didn't want me to work. He'd make comments about women who go out to work end up having affairs with their colleagues. So, you know, people are stupid for letting their wives work. Why do they let their wives work? So I wasn't allowed to work. Even though I'd been working since I was 14 years old, as soon as he came into my life, I fell pregnant, I fell ill, I had his first son. I wasn't allowed to go back to work, and his explanation of that was that he would go out to work and earn for us, and I would stay at home and look after the kids, and he was quite happy with that setup, and he wanted me to be happy with that setup. So at the time, I wasn't keen on the job that I was doing anyway. So I was quite happy to give that job up and not go back to work after my maternity leave, and then stay at home for a while. It got to the point where it's 9 years down the line, I still hadn't worked, and I absolutely hated it. You know, I've worked my whole life. I wanted to be in work. When you're at work, you get a break, you get a coffee break, you get a tea break, you can go to the bathroom, you can, you get your own time to chat to other adults. At home, there's just none of that. It's just endless days of being at home with kids, washing dishes and clothes and toys everywhere and mess everywhere, and it's just disheartening. You just lose sight of yourself and what life is about. So I no longer wanted to be at home, but he just wasn't happy for me to go to work. It wasn't until towards the end of the relationship that we'd then decided that I would get a job. Now my 3-year-old was in nursery, so I had time to then go to work. So we were discussing me starting to work. But he made me feel so worthless and useless. The fact that I was at home was his decision, and yet him and my older children, it's almost like I stopped being a human being because I was a stay-at-home mum. There was, I had no identity, I had no passion, I had no ambition. Anytime during the relationship that I've actually tried to do anything, I was a really good baker. I taught myself to bake occasional cakes and bake birthday cakes and novelty cakes and cupcakes and cake pops, all entirely learnt by myself off YouTube or tutorials that I've looked up techniques and things, and I started to actually sell the cake. So I was doing really, really well. He absolutely hated it. He couldn't bear me to do it, and it was a struggle day in, day out to be able to bake. And it wasn't until I actually gave it up then that he was happy and said, look, see, you can never stick to anything. I know you're not going to stick to it. You just get these crazy ideas in your head, and you're obsessed with them, and then suddenly you don't want to know. It was always my fault. I was good at sewing, could have sewed. I was offered a job in Karma Nirvana, which is a company based in Leicester who specialise in honour-based abuse and forced marriages and child brides and all the culture-related abuse that we have to put up with. And I was actually selected to be an ambassador, and I was invited to go to Leicester to meet the company and to meet the directors and so on, but he wouldn't allow me to go. He just completely and outright refused. Whereas at the beginning when I was applying for it and I just mentioned it to him, he was like, yeah, go for it. But as soon as I got the job and they wanted me to go up to Leicester, he would not allow me to go. So I had to just cancel. I can't even remember even if I told them that I wasn't going. I just could not go. And then, then he's happy because I'm back in his control. What I realise now after studying narcissism and what narcissists are like is that they cannot bear to lose control of you. They need you to be completely, entirely under their control. And as soon as you're independent, you've got friends, you've got a job, you're strong financially, physically, emotionally, then that challenges them because they can no longer control you. So as long as you're weak, as long as you're vulnerable, as long as you're ill, as long as you're weak financially, emotionally, mentally, physically, then they have complete control over you, and they can use the manipulative techniques, they can use all the things that they do as a narcissist to control your behavior, your thoughts, your feelings, your attitude, your outlook on life. And then they're quite happy. They're quite happy if they can have full control over you and you do not stand up for yourself, you do not realise your potential. And that is how narcissists function. They need to be in full control of you. So if you're becoming independent, if you've got too much of a social circle where you're going to be supported by people outside of your immediate home, and that is a threat to their existence and it's a threat to their supply, because they use you as supply to be able to take what's good about you and to portray you as negative and portray you as abusive and portray you as crazy and unstable. So from March to May, I had this horrendous abuse that I was being subjected to at home. Unfortunately, my older two children, who were 24 and 17 at the time, they had no idea. They did not understand. We spoke mainly in Urdu, so a lot of what was said, they had no idea, like how verbally abusive he was, how emotionally and psychologically abusive he was. He was very keen on hiding and disguising the abuse, so there was no way anybody had any way of knowing exactly how abusive he was. He would ensure there was no witnesses to anything that he did. It would be most of the time when we were on our own. If there were any of the younger children around, it would always been Urdu, so nobody could understand what he was saying to me. And so after the incident where he was screaming at me at 12 o'clock at night, there were a few more incidents like that where he just completely lost control and completely blew up at me. One morning he caught me saying hello to one of his friends that I'd been speaking to for 9 years. Because every time he becomes abusive, I'm messaging his brothers, I'm messaging his sisters, his sister-in-laws, his friends, anybody, just to ask for help and to beg and plead for help. Nobody ever seemed to come to my aid or help me, but this particular friend seemed to always be very caring and considerate, and to sympathise with me and to support me from afar. So he's in Pakistan, so I've only ever met him once and only briefly, but he was always very supportive, so I felt that somebody understood and validated my feelings. But when my husband saw me message him, he completely lost control and completely went ballistic and said, right, you're cheating on me, you know, you're cheating with my friend, you know, you've been lying to me. And this kind of carried on for a few days, where he would just suddenly blow up. You know, he took my phone, he was adding random men onto my phone, he was sending messages to my mum, my friend. He was going through my Facebook, my WhatsApp, my contact list, my Messenger, my emails, anything that he could, just to try and find something that he could pin on me. There wasn't anything on there because I didn't have any men on there. I didn't speak to anybody. You know, there was nothing for him to find, but it didn't stop him from going through and accusing me of all sorts and dragging my older children into it. You know, he'd be phoning and texting my eldest son, who didn't live with us. My 17-year-old, he'd be speaking to him, oh, look, you know, your mum's cheating on me, your mum's lying, your mum's chatting to my friend. He made sure he went into the kitchen, because I was cooking at one point on a Monday evening, and up until that point he would always speak in Urdu, so nobody could understand. But in our kitchen, our next door neighbours can hear everything from their kitchen in our kitchen. We can, vice versa, we can hear them as well. So he purposefully spoke in English and was screaming at the top of his voice, you're cheating on me, you're cheating on me, you're cheating on me. You know, you're cheating on me with my friend, you're sending my friend messages. It got to the point, there was a couple of more incidents like that at 6 o'clock in the morning, at 4 o'clock in the morning, where he was just screaming and shouting at me and swearing at me and threatening that, you know, your life is going to be hell, you wait and see, you know, I'll never let you live this down, you know, I'm going to make you pay for the rest of your life for this. And he meant, you know, that I was cheating on him with his friend that lived in Pakistan that I've only ever met once, who was happily married with the baby on the way, and, you know, there was nothing between us at all, bar the fact that he's his friend, and I would complain to him and text him to say when he's being abusive to me. So on the Saturday, 4 o'clock in the morning, when we had another incident like this, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was downstairs and sitting and crying my eyes out. I was emailing Women's Aid and pleading with them for help and saying, look, I can't cope, you know, he's completely crazy and he's completely driving me crazy and I don't know what to do and how to deal with it. And then I waited. I knew I wanted to go to the police station to report him for abuse. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. You know, I needed to be able to go as soon as I could when he was at home with the children. I tried to get ready in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning when he was with the children, but he must have realised that I was getting ready to go out, so he immediately disappeared off to work. He didn't even wait around, he just went off to work. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he came back because it was Ramadan. He was reading his namaz, so he came back to read the mid-afternoon prayers. And as soon as he came, literally, I just grabbed my coat and just went. And that was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I went down to Central Police Station to report him for domestic violence and abuse. And I was there until 9 o'clock at night, so that was 7 hours nearly, maybe 6.5 possibly. And I was giving reports. There was so much forms to fill out, so much things to tell them, and they were asking questions, and they had to fill out this form, and they had to fill out that form, and they had to wait for this person, and it just took so long. It just took forever. And the police officer would say to me, like, if you message me or anything, the police officer say, you know, don't reply to any of his messages, don't say anything to him, just, you know, we're not telling him anything. So they went down and arrested him at 9 o'clock at night. And I was told not to go back home until he was arrested, so I could stay in the car nearby to watch him be arrested so that I could get home as soon as he was arrested back to my kids. As soon as I got in the door, my 17-year-old was on the phone to his 24-year-old brother and telling him that, you know, he's been arrested. My 24-year-old was really angry and upset with me and actually said to me, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you run it past me? Why did you just report him to the police? Has he beaten you up? Has he, how has he been abusive to me? Tell me, I want to know, how has he been abusive to you? And I just couldn't explain. I was already in such a state. I'd been at the police station for 7 hours giving a report about him and explaining everything to them. And I just said, he's just abusive. I can't explain. I don't know how to explain to you how abusive he is. He is so abusive. Unfortunately, with time I realised that actually my children weren't supporting me. He'd been gaslighting me to everybody that was around me, my family, my friends, my neighbours, everybody. To the point where one of my sisters and my brother-in-law actually let him stay in their house for 2 months free of charge. Even though he was working, he was earning, and he didn't have any expenses to pay for, he was allowed to stay free of charge in their house for 2 months. Well, I was left with a £47 child benefit money per week to pay an £800 mortgage, feed 3 kids, pay my gas, my electricity, my water bills, my phone bills, my council tax, and everything else that I had to pay for, with no income, no savings, nothing. It was hard, and I applied for universal credit, and they take 5 weeks to pay out anything. So for about nearly 2 months, I'd say 6 weeks, 2 months, I didn't actually have a single penny of income other than the £47 a week child benefit money. I had to go to the food bank for food. The Sure Start would give out food parcels, the school would send out food parcels, the church dropped off a voucher. One of my friends did a rally round with some friends, and she got some money together and dropped off some gifts and some money to me. I did a GoFundMe page on Facebook too, which he managed to get hold of, and he messaged me from the GoFundMe page and said some horrible things like, I kept you comfortably for all these years, and now look at you, you're begging, you're reduced to being a beggar and begging for money. He managed to get people to harass me. One of my sisters sent some nasty emails to me about what a snake I was, and I spat venom, and I'm going to die a sad, lonely death, and that my 2 husbands should receive a medal for leaving me because, they've accomplished something amazing, to have put up with me for the number of years that they did, was amazing. And they should have a medal for actually leaving me. That my 2 older children can't stand me. Unfortunately, it's the 2 younger children that are suffering because they've got no choice to put up with a psycho mother like me. That my son is studying A-level psychology, so I can be his case study, and he can study me because I'm just completely crazy anyway, so I can be his case study. Just awful things like that. My niece blocked me because I asked her, is my husband staying with her, because nobody would actually tell me where he was, and he gave me hints that he was staying with somebody from my side of the family, that somebody that was connected to me, but they had told him not to tell me where he was staying. So he gave me hints about the house and things which pointed to either one of my sister's houses or my niece's house. And of the 2, my niece and her husband knew my husband. Her husband had worked with him, and they were lived quite close by us. So I asked her, I said, is he staying with you? And she said, it's okay. If he's staying with you, it's okay. I just need to know where he is, because I've had this with the last one where I could not serve divorce papers on him. So I need to know where he is so I can serve divorce papers on him if necessary, or anything, whatever I need to do. She just completely went ballistic on me and just blocked me and said that I was accusing her for nothing, and that it was a sin to accuse people. I shouldn't be accusing her. When I did find out that he was at my sister's house, I just packed all his stuff together and just grabbed as much as I could of his, and it was 2 bin bags full of clothes and things, and I just dumped it on her doorstep, and I texted her and said, you're welcome to keep him, he needs somewhere to stay, you need a lodger, so it works out perfectly for you. And then I blocked her, and I blocked my entire family, because I've had the same thing with my ex-husband where they immediately jump on the bandwagon, they immediately side with them, they're supporting them, they're pressuring me, they're humiliating me, they're manipulating me, they're just toxic. So I just thought, before I even get to that stage, I know I don't want to be with this person, I can't possibly be with this person. So I just blocked and deleted everybody out of my life practically, and the only people that were left were my 2 older children, that because they're my children I can't delete them. But there's been incidents where they've really hurt me, and things they've said and things, but I can't do anything about that.